Welcome students. Today we are going to see the types of preference shares. Uh, basically there are two types of shares. One is equity share and another one is preference share. So under preference shares, we have different kinds: cumulative and non-cumulative, participating and non-participating, redeemable and non-redeemable, then convertible and non-convertible preference shares. Let us see the meaning of the preference shares and followed by the explanation for each and every types of preference shares. See, the word itself says preference. That is, the preference shareholders will have a preferential right. So what does this preferential right denote? They are eligible to get a fixed dividend. Even if the company experience loss, they are eligible to get a fixed dividend. They have a safety, security and liquidity as well. So even in the event of liquidation of a company or a business, these preference shareholders, they get the preferential rights of getting a dividend advantage. Then we have what is called as cumulative preference shares. So under this, the dividends get accumulated even if it is not paid in a current year or in a given year. Say for example, if a company fails to pay dividend in the year 2022, so the shareholders are entitled to receive the outstanding dividend in the year 2023. So that is known as cumulative. It is getting added up. The previous year dividends will be accumulated and they are entitled to receive in 2023. So that is said to be cumulative preferences. Then non-cumulative preferences, the dividends that do not accumulate is said to be non-cumulative preferences. That means if the company decides not to pay dividends, say in the year 2022, then the shareholders forfeit the right to those dividends and they cannot claim them in the future. Okay. So that is said to be non-cumulative. So it will not be added up or it will not be an outstanding dividend for the shareholders. Then redeemable preference shares. Redeem means getting back or buying back after a certain period. So here the duty of the company is to redeem the shares, that is not shares, that is the share amount. Okay, the agreed share amount prices should be redeemed to the preference shareholders. So these shares have a redemption date, like a maturity date, and after which it can be repaid to the preference shareholders. Say for example, a company issues the redeemable preference shares which has a bearing date of 5-year maturity period. So at the end of the 5 years, the company can repurchase the shares from the shareholders and shareholders in turn will get the amount back along with the dividend. Okay. Next, non-redeemable. So it is quite opposite of redeemable preference shares. These shares cannot be purchased back by the company. And these shares exist perpetually and continue to earn fixed dividends as long as the company exists and it is profitable. Convertible preference shares. The shares can be converted to a common share. Say the conversion term is, they follow what is called as a conversion ratio. Say for example, a shareholder who holds the convertible preference shares can be converted to a 2 common share of each preference shares after 3 years. Non-convertible preference shares, the shares which cannot be converted to a common share. So these kind of shareholders receive fixed dividends, but they are not eligible to change the preference shares into common shares but they may have a stable and predictable returns. So what is this participating preference share? Participating preference share is the surplus that the preference shares are eligible to get. See, when a company earns a surplus profit, the additional profits, then the shareholders are entitled to get these additional profits or the surplus profit. So after receiving their fixed dividend, the company performs exceptionally well. These shareholders receives an additional dividend on the top of the fixed rate. So non-participating, again it's quite opposite of the participating preference shares. The shareholders will not get any benefit for earning the additional profits. They only receive the agreed dividend amount and they are not entitled to get the surplus profit. Now, what is the comparison between the preferred shares and the common shares? See, the preferred shares normally offers fixed dividends and priority over common shares, but generally they do not get any voting right. Only equity shareholders get voting rights. With regard to the preference shares, you get a stable income. There is a low risk, but potential compared to common shares, which offer voting rights, higher returns, but come with the higher risks. Your common shares are nothing but your equity shares. Okay. And if you want to see the real world or the case studies or some example of the preference shares, companies like Coca-Cola, General Electric, GE issue various types of preference shares. And why what is the impact? Because these companies find it as a flexible way to raise capital by issuing the preference shares without diluting the control, while providing investors with a predictable income stream. So these are some types of preference share capital. So in summary, we have covered the types of preference shares, their characteristics and examples. So feel free to ask any kind of questions, and you can also chat it in the comment box. Okay, thank you so much for patiently listening.